My name is Noah. I co-own Driftless Organics, which is it's about a 40-acre diversified vegetable farm in southwest Wisconsin. We've been growing on this farm here vegetables for about 3 seasons now. Before that, we were in the valley or spread out. We had plots all over the place. So our parents sold the dairy cows about 3 years ago, and a lot of land opened up for production that was formerly growing feed for dairy animals. But this farm, as I mentioned earlier, has been managed organically for over 30 years. My relationship with weeds is good. I like weeds. I think they're really interesting. They can tell you a lot about a field. If we're looking at land, like new land we're thinking of leasing or purchasing or bringing into production, the type of weed that grows there can definitely tell you a lot about what type of land it is, if it's wet, fertile, not very fertile, holds water, holds nutrients. So they have a lot of wisdom in them. So my biggest concerns when I see weeds in the field is the size. In order to have effective weed management organically, amongst many other things, you want to just barely be able to see the weeds when you're going through to kill them. They die so much easier when they're little, you know. The white thread stage is something you'll hear a lot of people talk about. You can kill bigger weeds. We kill bigger weeds, you know. A year like this, when rains have been very untimely, we kill weeds whenever we can, you know, not necessarily when they're at that white thread stage. So when it gets about 3 inches tall, that's when it's starting to get out of control. Once the weed gets 3 inches tall, you know, that's when it's beyond. It's going to be difficult to kill mechanically at that point. It's taken too much of a root hold. So once they're, not that you can't kill them after that, you can, depending on the tool and how aggressive a tool you have. We have lots of fields that have weeds that are much larger than 3 inches or whatever. Usually with early crops like broccoli here behind us, it's in and out before weeds go to seed. So we do the best we can, but we probably won't hand hoe that because I'll just till the whole field under here in about 5 or 6 days. And that I don't mind a big weed here and there. It's unsightly, but it's not a big deal, you know. So kind of 2 answers to that question. Depends if the crop can mature before weeds go to seed and what the crop is. Most important practices in our weed management is soil preparation, making sure you're going into a field that has been mineralized and well conditioned for the crop. We don't have enough good land to do that with every crop, but that's what we're striving for. And yeah, preparation's a big part of it. Some of these fields that are coming out of spring cover crops now will go into, depending on the weather, a 2 to 4 week fallow period where basically just weed seed can germinate and we'll kill it. Germinate, kill it. It's a practice called weeding the field, not the crop. So our manual weeding crew will go in after we've done a primary or even a secondary cultivation in a field. So, and they're primarily removing weeds from in the row, in the crop. So they know they'll go into a field with, if we haven't had a chance to cultivate yet, they'll leave all the weeds right in the center. They know we will come and get those mechanically. They've learned that, and they don't want to do any more work than they have to. They're happy just to take, I always tell them, 2-inch band, that's all I need. Clean the 2-inch band around every row and then I can get the rest. So, rhizome areas of the farm where we have a rhizome outbreak. If it's small, we'll try to work with it, with the crop, but otherwise we'll take that out of production, and generally we field cultivate that area intensively and try to lift those rhizomes on top of the ground and get them to dry out and die. And if we have time, hand pick some of them, but that's basically the only way I know to get rid of those. Ideally, we would have almost 50% of our land not in production every year, and that would be for soil building and weed control, doing the summer fallow of removing weeds with just like the field cultivator. Farm I worked at, Gardens of Egan, they had a really excellent weed control, and that was a big, they had enough land there where they could have almost half of next year's crop de-weeded the summer before. So we really try to do that. We're a little tight on land, so, and then also, if we have a field that's real weedy or needing more attention, but we have to plant it, we'll try to plant it with like transplants, like 2-row transplants, or things that are really easy to be aggressive on early on, where you don't have to wait. Like with a seedling, you have to wait for it to come up quite a ways before you can be super aggressive. So that's kind of in the rotation. I haven't really found that there's a cover crop that really suppresses weeds or gets rid of them or anything. So I don't find that. I think the biggest thing is the summer fallow and really being choosy about if a field's ready to, if a field's in good enough production to be put into, I guess like a higher risk category as far as like direct seeded crops. Those go in as clean a fields as we have that are in, most suitable production. And we also do, with the basket, using the basket weeder, we can stale bed. We do some stale bedding. That's really relies on timing. There being wet and dry periods to get a germination of weeds, and then dry enough to kill them. Keeping field roads and edges mowed. Just general whole farm management of weed seed, and really making sure weeds don't go to seed. We're not always able to do that, but 95+% of the time, weeds do not go to seed in the field or at the edges of the fields. Some things I don't feel good about are how open and how frequently the soil is worked in this organic production. As I said before, we cultivate early and often, and that's the lowest cost way to maintain a crop, because it's very inexpensive to have a person go through and mechanically cultivate with a tractor. And some crops that can yield a crop that requires little to no hand weeding, but the downside of that is that it's being worked several times throughout the year, and it's always keeping that soil very loose, very erodible to wind and water. And that's probably the #1 thing that really irks me or really makes me sick, is seeing soil wash or blow away. For me, I guess I don't really know any other way of farming. We grew up organic dairy farming here. We've always been organic. This land hasn't been sprayed in over 3 decades. I like the variety. I don't think I do well doing one thing every day. A lot of people probably don't, but I'm just super fortunate to have the ability to do this